You can reverse engineer other people's revenues on Airbnb. So we just use the Airbnb platform. We'll do a search for listings and try to find like the most similar listings that we can find. Open up their calendar, look for block dates. We search all these different dates, put them into an Excel file, and try to recreate their calendar. What are their prices per night? Do they change? Do they have minimum length of stay? Do they got weekly discounts, other discounts, whatever? We can also go back to their reviews and count how many reviews they have. So we can see in the past, ballpark, how many reservations they have. And we can do all this all this math and extrapolate, because you don't get a guarantee, but there's not a software in the world that can guarantee it either. I even spoke with one of the main representatives for AirDNA. And AirDNA said, we don't have a tool for arbitrage yet. So you can't really do comps for arbitrage on AirDNA anyway. And that made me feel a lot better about the fact that I've been teaching people to do all of their market research on Airbnb for free anyway.
Yeah.
And we can reverse engineer with pretty good accuracy what they're getting booked at. And at the same time, you could look at that listing and find out if they're not changing their prices at all ever. You can tell that they're leaving money on the table, at peak season and slow season for certain reasons. It also makes it very easy to find out what price point gets booked in what seasons when their prices don't change, right? So if somebody's just $200 a night every single day, and you can see that they've got 8 reviews in October and 2 reviews in June, you can tell that $200 that gets gobbled up in one month and doesn't in the other. So it's having a small bundle of listings that you go through their calendars and kind of reverse engineer. You can find out what prices are working, what's not working, what design styles are working, what property sizes are working. You can just get it all done and know. And you may decide after that market research that the property that you thought you were going to pick up, you decide you'd rather pick up a different property because of the insights that you get right off of Airbnb.
Yeah. It's so funny because that's very similar to the process that I teach too. I don't recommend paying for the paid version of AirDNA because I've just seen it be so far off. And we kind of reverse engineer as well. And it's amazing how many people like leave that same price and they're like, I have a $200 a night property. And it's like, no, you don't. It could be $1,000 a night in the summer and $100 in the winter. So when it comes to occupancy, that's been more of the challenge, I think. And I think getting, people that I work with, the engineer mindset, they want to get to that exact, it's 55% occupancy. That's what it is, because that's everything has to be specific numbers. And I say the same thing. You're never going to get exact. You want to get the closest ballpark. And then we always estimate the most conservative version of that. But how do you come up with occupancy? It feels like that's a little bit more challenging than pricing.
It should always be over 90%, 94, 96%. But the question is, at what price? Right? So I've been working on a new revenue management model, something a little bit more visual than I normally teach. And it breaks up occupancy into zones. You know the concept of lead time, right? 5 days in advance is more last minute than 20 days in advance. 2 months out is better, right? And if you took all those dates and broke them up into little zones, and say zone 1 was everything more than 90 days away. Zone 5 is everything inside of 10 days. And you break up the zones. Your zones will change per property. If you're urban, if you're on an island, property size, your zones will change because lead time behavior does change on property size and location. But then your goal is to orchestrate your booking traffic to get a healthy amount of bookings in every single zone. Where in peak season, you're cool with those zones being more last minute. But in slow season, you want to get booked first in slow season, last in peak season, for example. I just finally almost finished this book. It is a book on revenue management, and I'm going to announce its launch at STR Wealth. I don't think this podcast is coming out before then. So the Revenue Manager's Handbook, written by yours truly, it's available for pre-registration. It's not for sale yet.
Nice.
My very first book, and it is Pricing Strategy.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
thanks.
Is it going to be on Amazon, I assume?
I'm going to self-publish and self-sell, and Amazon can go take a hike for as long as we can sell the book on our own. So,
nice. So what's the website to get the book for people who want to?
It's just my name. Good luck spelling that. Rakidzich.com/handbook. So yeah, it's exciting. I've been writing 5 different books over the course of a few years. And when I was asked to speak about revenue management next week at STR Wealth Conference, it gave me this moment of I could use this as this has to get done now, because I'm ADHD, right? And I like to do things until I'm good at them, and then they're no longer life or death anymore. I want to become a master of something, but then I become less fixated once I feel like I'm sufficient. And so writing books are like that. Oh, like this is a good book, and then I just kind of like push it to the side because I feel like I accomplished something writing half of a good book. And I was like, if I don't do something, this thing's never going to come out. So.
Well, it's surprising to hear that because your content is very consistent and it's great. You put out a lot of it. So,
Well, in a way, the content's incomplete too, because for the 6 years I've been a YouTuber, I've never scripted any of my videos.
wow.
Just I'll turn on the camera and talk. That's kind of what I do. That's my vibe. And there's been a lot of good content in there, but there's also been a lot of like really drawn out intros. A lot of me rambling and tangents and trying to explain stuff, right? Anybody who watched my content 4 years ago, bless them for hanging in there with me. Lately, it's become more concise because I've really learned what makes for a better YouTube video lately. But in that way, I feel inspired and I want to do something, and then I'll do it, and then I can't be bothered after that. So like, thank God I've got 3 editing teams because I mean I just don't have the time to edit my own content, you know.
Yeah.
But I think being a YouTuber is great for someone like me because I don't really have to finish much. I just have to be motivated for 30 or 40-minute stretches.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I've been working a lot more on batching myself and trying to be less scripted. I was taking way too much time to script, so I admire the fact that you can just press record and take it from there. So that's awesome.
Bullet point opinion, right?
Yeah.
That's like usually here's the bullet points, and I'm gonna here's my hot take per bullet point. That's more my style.
That's great. So you mentioned your cleaning team. I'm curious what your how many units do you have now? And then what does your back end team look like to manage that many units efficiently?
119 currently. We took a little bit of step back on a couple of buildings. We have, I would say, roughly 1 housekeeper per 5 doors, but that may not be completely accurate. I don't run the housekeeping teams directly. A girl named Spencer does. And we have 1 leadership position. So some of them are supervisors, whatever. So we've got a leadership position above. And 1 out of every 3 housekeepers is either leadership or management in that way. Sometimes 1 out of every 4. But we do a lot of remote quality assurance, remote walkthroughs and stuff. So we need people to go through a lot of photos to make sure that everything's good. That's probably the main thing with supervising hourly staff is you have to inspect what you expect to make sure that they're doing their jobs right. But yeah, 1 housekeeper can clean 4 or 5 apartments in a day if they're not too nuts. If they're messy, then they have to report to us like, hey, this one, somebody threw a party or something. And we'll slightly restructure the day. But yeah, 1 housekeeper per 5 doors, I think, is pretty healthy.
Got it. And it's all apartments that you have for the most part?
We have some houses. We started picking up houses on revenue share a little over a year ago.
Okay.
So houses, mostly apartments.
Okay. But your hourly housekeepers will still go over to the houses, and it's not like they're just okay. Cool. So it's a very hierarchical model, and you've got a main manager then for the whole cleaning team. And is she like salary, or do you pay her hourly, or?
So salary for all the managers that aren't in the field a lot.
Okay.
As we pull them out of field work, they move into a salaried position. People who do a lot of field work are still hourly. Our housekeepers are about $17 an hour. Some a little less still, but most of our hiring's been at 17 lately.
Wow. Yeah, I can see how that saves a lot of money then. And then in terms of guest relations and bookings and questions and all that, what does your team look like for that?
We have 1 person on shift from 10 a.m. till midnight. That person changes. They're not working the whole day.
Yeah.
But the bottleneck is there's 1 person for almost all communication from 10 a.m. to midnight. Then the housekeeping supervisor, there's going to be like a housekeeping like manager on duty that does all the housekeeper correspondence throughout the day. And so it's like we have a back of house manager during prime time and then a front of house person all day, every day. So the back of house and the front of house communicates in case there's issues, damages, theft, holdovers, whatever. But somebody gets up at like 10, 9:30, whatever, starts responding to all the messages from after midnight. We just have like a we're not available from midnight to 9. And so they start to respond to all those messages from overnight. And then we provide support until midnight. And then that just back house person makes sure that if we have to move people around or have to somehow play with the schedule, there's still that communication between front and back house.
Interesting. Wow. And the front of house person that talks to the guests, are they stateside or are they foreign?
We have 100% USA based staff.
I see.
No VAs.
Interesting.
Well, you could call them VAs. They're remote workers, but nobody overseas.